Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today to celebrate the week of leadership. Can anyone please confirm in the chat? Can you're able to hear me and see me properly? It's the first time I'm streaming, and I want to make sure that everything is fine. Okay, I think I was able to see some likes on LinkedIn. Perfect. Okay, this is fantastic. So let's give it few minutes until the rest join. Meanwhile, please, if you can, use the link in the chat. I'm going to put it right now, just as a test to make sure it is working. Yes, so use that link, or if you want from your phone, using the QR code, and try to share with me in less than 5 words what does awareness mean to you in the leadership context. So I'm just giving you like few seconds, like 30 seconds to think about. Please try to share in the on the Padlet. When you think about awareness in terms of leadership, what does come to your mind? Don't make it a big sentence, just few words. Perfect. Yeah, I've seen some people writing. That's perfect. But meanwhile, while you're writing, I'm going to just give you a small introduction of who I am without boring you with all the details. So let me just go back to my video. Perfect. So in few words, my name is Tarek Jomaa, and if you want to know a lot of details about me, you can read on my website or my LinkedIn profile. But in few words, the best way for me to describe a little bit my career is a nice picture I found in a book called The Squiggly Career. And if you look at it right away, you will see that my career doesn't look like anything like the classic ladder. It's more like a really squiggly gibberish that I was going from different points, starting from motorsports engineering to leading projects in engineering in different sectors, and then working in higher education and also as a coach and a mentor in leadership. So it was a very rich journey that helped me to learn a lot. And the quote that resonates with me is the following here that you can see. In order to keep up with the world of 2050, you will above all need to reinvent yourself again and again. And this is something that I stress enough when I'm coaching leaders, thinking about how we can reinvent ourselves to face a world that is full of instability, constant change, and there is no more a classic norm. And I think the few past years taught us this very well, between the pandemic, between the hybrid work, and the big year resignation as well. So let me just check what I was reading. So from what you shared with me, you shared communication, you shared self and team impact awareness, which is a great one. You shared relationship motivation, conflict management, and compassion. So everything you shared somehow will resonate with what I want to show you today, which hopefully I will not go above 1 hour. So from my experience, especially coaching many leaders, and from my also personal experience as a leader, I came up with this principle, what I called the 5A leaders, leading with awareness. So, thinking of the 5 main areas that any leader should really be aware of. And again, my purpose today is not to teach you something new. You can find it much better and prettier in many books. It's just to repackage things and celebrate with you the Leadership Week of 2023. And hopefully, we can all come out of it with some golden nuggets that make us better, more aware, and more effective. So, The 5 areas of leadership I'm going to talk about today are aware of your team thinking quality, aware of your team motivators, aware of your communication, which is a very important one, aware of your leadership style, and self aware. I will give you some basic information which you can then research online and have more details. But what I want to focus with you here is sharing maybe some technical information, some stories, how coaching can help as well, and how we can be ourselves more aware after today's webinar. So, when we think about thinking quality, which is one of my favorites, but before that, let me just show you something. I'm not going to go in details about the management versus leadership. I think all of you are aware of the classic slide which you will see anywhere if you are studying leadership, that management is not leadership. There is a big difference, and we can categorize them in different things. In few words, management is managing a process, while leader is leading people, which are not a process. And what is interesting for me is this quote from Kevin Cruz: leadership is a process of social influence which maximize the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. And if we look under the leadership section, we will see words such as influence, empower, motivate, embrace, develop, understand. And these words naturally will relate to the 5 area of awareness. Because when you want to motivate someone, you need to understand motivation, where it comes from, how you can motivate people. If you want to influence someone, if you want to develop or delegate, so avoiding micromanagement, this is awareness of leadership style, for example. If you want to understand others and yourself, it's about self awareness. And you can link any of the other words with any of those 5 area of awareness. And again, here, I want to show you this quickly, which also is a classic thing that any leader will read anywhere about the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. I'm not going to go in details. I can share with you many research I read, and right away you have a title, which I can share with you the reference under at the end of the PowerPoint. But if you want to be a better leader, you need to have a growth mindset, understanding that whatever obstacle you face or setbacks, you can bump, bounce, and go again. And it is about shifting your mentality and your team mentality from a problem solving attitude towards actually a learning opportunity and a solution focused attitude. And this cannot happen without those 5 awareness area. So let's start with being aware of your thinking quality. Now, I don't know what's going to come to your mind, but this is something that I find very interesting. And before we jump to it, during all my coaching to any leader, any manager, and even in the industry or even in higher education, the classic thing that you will hear is that usually meetings are useless, unfortunately. 80% of the people will come out of a meeting by saying, we learned nothing, this could have been done by an email, and so on. I don't know if you agree with this or not. I would love to see your comments in the chat. And this is where many managers actually are failing to understand how to raise the thinking quality. Thank God that Nancy Klein gave us some rules, some components, let's say. So, a thinking environment, based on Nancy Klein's definition, is a set of conditions under which people can think for themselves and think well together. And what I usually give you as an advice is, if you look at these 10 components, which you can find them on my website, on my blog in details, they guide you and they help you to understand how to nurture a meeting, how to nurture a creative environment, and increase the thinking quality. You have attention, you have question, equality, appreciation, ease, encouragement, feelings, information, place, and diversity. I'm not going to go through each one of them. You can find the description and the definitions on my blog. But the idea is that my advice for you, if as a manager or a leader, for example, in a meeting, you try to look at these components, choose the two that you think went the worst during that meeting and the two that were the best, and start working on improving them you will notice transformational results. We forget somehow that you need, like, I heard this many times in a meeting. For example, you do have maybe someone expressing dissatisfaction from a situation, and you will have the manager, for example, saying, I understand that, can we take it outside on another time, let's focus on the agenda. I completely understand that it's important to follow the agenda and finish the meeting on time. But what you need to understand as a leader is that when you do that, you don't allow the emotional release and restoring the thinking quality of that individual. So in that meeting, you lost that person. And that individual will suddenly just be waiting for the end of the meeting and trying to find a way to speak to you about what he wanted to say or she wanted to say. We cannot now abuse and make this meeting just for feelings, but there is a way as a leader to manage between the enough appropriate dose of each of those components. You see, same is for attention. We can talk about it alone for an hour. It's not about in a meeting just listening to someone talking. It's the body language. We're going to see it later in the communication. It's about everything. And the person speaking, if they don't feel that they are heard properly, even their thinking quality will drop and they will be distracted and they'll be focusing on how to attract attention and so on. And these are many components that really will drop the quality of your thinking environment. And every coachee I worked with them, as soon as they became aware of these 10 components and just started to work maybe on the two that they were the worst, okay, they saw a big difference in no time. Now, again, how can we do that? There is different techniques. You can maybe ask for anonymous feedback. You can explain those components in a meeting and ask the team to, let's say, rate from 1 to 10, scale each one of them. And this, as a manager, can give you an opportunity to understand better actually where you are strong, where the meeting was strong. You see, for example, in every manager situation during coaching, the bit about information was very good. Some of them were very clear. They know what's the agenda. They communicate information in a very, very clear, precise, concise way. But it's not enough. They were lacking maybe appreciation or ease or encouragement, you see, to make people who are silent speak up a little bit because they do have great ideas and so on. So take this and reflect on it. And I hope it resonates with you in any meeting you had, but not only a meeting, it can be just even in an appraisal meeting, imagine. So not just a department meeting, it can be just even one-to-one with a manager employee when they want to set performance target, goals, or review or feedback. If you don't understand these components, you are not getting the best out of that thinking environment. Now, this is very important. And before we look at the slides, motivation for me is one of the main topic as well I do face in coaching. And as a leader, when I was leading in engineering, and I'm still leading in engineering department as well, or also in higher education, we often don't understand what is motivation. And we think it's something that you might have it today and in a year it disappears. Then what happened? We don't know. What can we do with that? And as well, by just looking at some theory, it can really make you more aware what is motivation and how to tackle it within yourself and your team. One of those theory is the two-factor theory from Herzberg, which I like it. I really like it, and I will explain to you why. But before that, something I saw during my career is that a lot of managers think if someone is dissatisfied, then we try to provide or change the situation. We are moving them toward satisfaction, motivation, because they think of it as a one factor theory. And this is where Herzberg theory came on as a two factor theory, where it says the two factors are you have the hygiene factor and the motivators. So, usually in organization, when you have employees that are not satisfied, so they are dissatisfied, what companies usually do, they try to provide things such as maybe new equipment, a small bonus. Let's remove the dress code. Let's renewed the kitchen for the staff to have some time to spend there and chill. All these hygiene factor will provide a short, let's say, satisfaction. But in reality, you're just moving your team or your organization from dissatisfaction to no dissatisfaction. And now the idea is that if you want to get a really motivated team and move them from no satisfaction, so it's the green line now, to satisfaction, you need to understand their motivators. And this will not happen if you don't know your team, if you're not aware of the different people you work with. Usually, the motivators will fall under one big umbrella, which is fulfillment, feeling part of a bigger picture, wanting to be contributing to something bigger than ourselves. Some people will prefer maybe a bonus, a raise, are driven by money. But usually, a leader will be aware, again, let's underline awareness here, of actually what are the motivators in everyone and how they are changing over time. Do you know how many times managers came to me and say, okay, I used to have, for example, Ben, very motivated, doing this very well. Then after 2 years, he lost motivation. And what I challenge them here in the coaching session is that actually, what do we mean by their lost motivation? Sorry, did they have a change in interest? What happened with them? Are you coaching them to better understand where are they heading with their motivation? What motivates them now? And now this make me jump to the second motivation theory, which I really like as well. It's a good one. It's called the expectancy theory by Victor Vroom. And the expectancy theory tells you that motivation is a product of three factors, three components. So you have expectancy, you have instrumentality, and you have valence. And this theory instantly bring your level awareness to a really, really, really high standard when you are even talking to an employee, to a team member, and to understand how can you really motivate them. So for example, the expectancy, let's look back at the slide, is the relation between the effort someone can put and the performance they will get out of it. So it's like, for example, let's say I'm giving a task to Sarah in my team, and Sarah knows very well that if she does it, if she puts the effort, she will get fantastic performance. She knows she's been doing it for years, it will be good. But this is not enough to ensure that Sarah will be really motivated to do that thing, that task. That's the expectancy, it's part of it. This is where the instrumentality comes in, and it's the relation between performance and the reward. So now, does Sarah see any reward from that high performance, that result? And if she doesn't, this is where, as a manager, I will fall in a problem and she will not be really motivated to do that task. And then finally, you have the valence, a very important factor, which is the relation between that reward and its meaning to us, so to Sarah in this case. And you, as a manager, what you want to do, you want to ensure that your team member is high on the three factors. And the way to do that actually is really easy, is just by coaching them. So, for example, if you are giving them a task and you're noticing some resistance, instead of just enforcing the message by repeating that it needs to be done, it's not effective. I saw this happening many times. You can try to coach them in a few minutes by understanding, so what is stopping them, or what is missing. Do they feel that actually if they're going to put the effort, they're not going to get results? They might answer you, no, 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 Tarek, I have no problem with that. I did it before. If I do it, I know I'm going to do it properly. So then this helps you right away in your head to say, okay, so it's not the expectancy, the issue. So what is it? How can we recognize what you're doing? How can we reward you in what you're doing? Some people will say, well, I want to enroll on a course, on a CPD, or I want to be recognized. I want a different title, some money, like as a bonus, for example, a raise. And this is where a manager now, I know that we cannot provide everything. We have a lot of restrictions, but this is a manager now, they can really tackle down the motivation by really narrowing down where the problem is coming from and finding a compromise. And trust me, this is very effective because I do believe everyone is motivated. We just need to find the right key, what motivates them. And usually, as I said before, it's the same umbrella. We want to feel useful. We want to feel part of the new picture. This is something even in change management I talk a lot about with my coaches. And what I want to add as well, which is very important, is that high performing people are many times left out. And this is where managers as well are failing to motivate the high performing. Because you see, usually we look at people like if you're performing very well and you're very effective, getting amazing results, everything's fine. So let's focus maybe on the underperformers. And what managers do not understand is that, or the majority, let's say, high performing people are very demanding people. They need constant stimulation. And trust me, I know that I am one of them. And I know how much I suffered in the past when I'm not stimulated in a dynamic role. And this is where a manager needs to pay attention for that. And what I want to share with you, and this is actually a question from the Institute of Leadership Management when you are doing your questionnaire to understand your leadership. And they really ask if your team has a highly motivated star who always exceeds targets. You can be sure they don't need any developments, true or false. And the answer is false. They need development and they might even need more than the others. So, this is why, as well as a manager, you need to be aware that you cannot leave the high performers and focus, let's say, on low performance. They have different needs, they need different support, but they need it. And again, the key is to understand their motivation. To close on motivation, I want to add as well that one style doesn't fit all. So some people, they are very happy where they are. They don't want to progress. They like what they do. They like the stability and they're happy with that. Some other, they are hungry for progression, for contributing on a higher level. There is no wrong or right. As a manager, you will know how to deal with them. But again, by understanding the motivation of every individual, you will know how to tackle better this situation. And this is something many organizations are resisting. And this is why I like this quote as well from Chudzikowski. I'm sure I pronounced it very bad. Organizations could emphasize career path that offers alternative to classic upward mobility. And you see, I can see many resistance in many organizations to help people shift laterally. And again, this is because as well we understand the structure and the roles and HR structures and hierarchy. But sometimes you can really make someone more satisfied if you understand their motivation and you slightly move them laterally by giving them different responsibilities. And this is how you can get the best out of your team. Now, communication is one of the most important. I'm saying it for every area, I know, but communication is a big one. And I can really talk about it as well for hours. And the best thing that one of my coaches told me in the past is that he was a CEO in a company, and he said, Tarek, after the coaching with you, I I will never underestimate when someone writes on a CV communication skills. It's not because of me, it's because of his awareness of what communication is. And it is very, very interesting because when I talk to many people, they look at communication as you have to be charismatic, you have to speak clearly, loudly, and know how to influence people. However, what I always share with them when we start coaching, and this is based on research, as you can see, is that 7% of communication is verbal, 7%. And the rest is body language, 55%, and intonation for the 38%. And this makes us really think, so what is communication? How do we communicate? And this is where we start diving deeper, understanding more communication. It is actually more about listening than speaking, communicating empathy, matching and mirroring. If you're sitting with someone in a certain state, you mirror their energy to get their attention and really show focus, being present. You are a good listener. You show empathy and you focus on details. And this links to attention, which was one of the components in the thinking environment. When we talk about communication, we cannot dismiss the importance of transactional analysis. The pack model works like a charm. With any leader I work with them, as soon as I explain it to them, and I'm not an expert in transactional analysis, right away their communication changed. The pack model is simply stating that inside each one of us, we have three ego states. So we have the parent, P, the adult, and the child. And usually, when we communicate to someone, we will be communicating from one of those ego states. Now, the parent is like the way our parents were treating us, the adult is like our current state, and the child is like how we were responding as a child. So, this is in a brief way. I'm not an expert or psychologist here, but the message from it is that when you are engaging as a leader, or even actually between your team members in a communication, if you take a step back and think from what ego state you were communicating and to what ego state they were receiving that communication, you will honestly understand quickly why and where it was not working. And many leaders told me, actually, Tarek, after reflecting, I was communicating from a parent demanding obedience, so being very, very assertive, and they were responding from a child rebelling, not wanting to listen. And this awareness right away in the meeting while reflecting in action helps you to shift your ego state and better understand how you can have a healthy transaction between you and the other person. It is very effective. You can just Google it, transaction analysis, the PAC model, PAC. Very, very effective. Staying in that topic, something I love as well is the games. And I wrote a small blog post about great leaders understand the game. And in transaction analysis, games are the ongoing series of transaction happening with a well-defined and predicted outcome. That's by Eric Byrne. And it's very interesting, and I will just give you a small example to explain this equation. And this is, I'm sure that it's going to resonate with all of you in situation you had, if it's with your partner, your family, your boss, or your team. So imagine I come to my manager and I say, you know what? The task you gave me is impossible to do. I'm trying everything, it doesn't work. I am here pulling a con. That's the first element. Keep in mind, this game is not about manipulation. It's something unconsciously that we all do it on a daily basis. And being aware of it help us not play that game or try to play it differently. The gimmick is when the manager listen to me and then the response when they start trying to give me solution. So for example, well, Tarek, but have you tried this? Have you tried that? And then we enter in the game. Whatever the manager is telling me, I will be answering them. Yes, I think this can work, but there is that, or there is this. So there's always a but for any suggestion. Because unconsciously, I do have a predicted outcome I want. Unconsciously, I'm not doing it on purpose. Then, after the manager will exhaust all possible outcome solutions, there will be a switch where they're going to say, Tarek, I don't know what to say anymore. I gave you 10 solutions, it doesn't work. I don't know what to say. And this is where the cross up happen, the confusion happen, and this is where the payoff comes here. The manager feels helpless, could not help me, and I feel it was useless. I'm hopeless. There is no hope. It doesn't work. These meetings, I saw a lot of them, this interaction. And what I always coach leaders here in this situation is to understand the game. And the only way to not play the game or playing on your own terms is really by having those open, powerful questions. So when someone is coming, for example, with such situation, instead of jumping right away to be a problem solver, you can ask, okay, Tarek, but I remember you facing similar things in the past. I'm giving a random example here. So how did you do it? Or what is the problem here? What is stopping you? How did you manage in the past? And often you will discover that the real reason, for example, is that Tarek wanted some recognition. So it's not like Tarek cannot do the task. They know how to do it. It's just that maybe they felt it was dumped on them and they're not getting recognized for it and they want some recognition. And this is where you as a leader, you can shift right away the discussion by understanding where is the problem and really how you can solve it effectively. This is part of communication, which we don't think about. every leader I talk to them, communication is just speaking clearly and influencing. So I hope really this resonates with you. Go read about it on my blog and even actually online, Eric Byrne. It is very, very powerful. Now, the fourth one is being aware of leadership style. And this is something that it is a must with any coachee. I always talk about this when it's about leadership. And what we have to understand is that leadership is no more like the old classic great man theory. It is someone born with great qualities, influencing, being very charismatic. Sorry about that, having great influence and presence. Leadership developed from this old concept to something called more about situational leadership and leadership style by Daniel Goleman. And the idea is that if you want to be a great leader, Daniel Goleman states that you need to use at least 4 different leadership styles. So bouncing between the appropriate leadership style with the appropriate team member helps you to be very effective. And this means you treat them differently. But by treating them differently, you're being more inclusive. So it's not like you're not being fair. Actually, you're being very fair, more than enough. You need to be inclusive, understanding. So some people, for example, will love pace setting leadership style. A pace setting leadership style, it means like I expect a high standard. I did it in the past. I know how it's done. I'm setting the pace and I want you to follow that. Some people need this guidance. Some other people will appreciate much more a coaching leadership style where you work on making them take ownership and develop their skills. Some other will love the democratic leadership style. It's a leadership I use a lot. It's about actually you as a leader taking the ideas from your team, putting them in charge, asking them what to do. Some people love the authoritative leadership style, which it's also a leadership style I use a lot, which is about communicating a vision, but then taking the people with you and letting them find the details and work towards that vision. And bouncing between them really makes you a very effective leader. And the funny bit is that many of my coachees, when they came to me, they they never heard of leadership style. However, after a few sessions, they were on their own discovering that they were treating their team members differently. And just making them aware of that help them understand on their own without knowing what is leadership style that they were using different leadership style. And this as well helped them to really, really boost a lot their leadership and how they are acting with their team. And now again, you can find this online easily. There is a great book and great article on even on uh, online. You can find it on journal like I think Harvard Business Journal. Yeah, Daniel Goleman. It's called Leadership That Gets Results. Okay, and here we have the 6 leadership style. You have the coercive one, you have the pace setting, the authoritative, the democratic, the affiliative, which is more about people, and the coaching. And usually, as I said, bouncing between 4 of them based on the situation and the person will really, really, really make you impactful when it comes to leading your team. And finally, I was trying to rush a little bit with everything before to focus on self awareness. So, self awareness, even though I put it the last, it is one of the most important, and it is what I work with any leader. If you don't develop self awareness and become very self reflective, you will never improve your leadership style or your leadership awareness and techniques. And it is really, really crucial to understand what do we mean by self-awareness here. Because first of all, it's in the last one of the principles because the previous 4 applies to it. So even you, when you have to be self-aware, you have to be self-aware of your weakness when communicating. You have to be self-aware of your own motivators. You see, if a leader change motivation and they're not aware of it, they will suddenly become not effective in their job. And I had in the past to even step down of many leadership role I had because I felt that in this moment I cannot give my team the best. My interest and motivation changed. But by doing this, actually, I even felt stronger than before by showing vulnerability, understanding myself and my own motivators. So this is why it came in last, but actually it is very important. So even reflecting on each one of the previous principle, you can directly relate it to your own self and how do you fit in this picture. Now, a basic understanding of self-awareness for me is the Johari window. It's been created by John and Harry, two psychologists, and it's incredibly simple but yet powerful. And it is dividing us in four quadrants. So you have the open area, it is what people know about you and what you know about yourself. Then you have your blind area, which is what you don't know about yourself, but people know about you. Then you have the hidden area, it's the opposite. So what you know, but you hide and people don't know. And then you have the unknown area. And what you want to do here, stay with me, what you want to do, you want to increase the open area to know more about the unknown. And sometimes it's very tough. I remember one of my coaching, a great individual. He was so sure that he knows himself very well. Whatever I tell him, I ask him, I know myself very well. If you ask all my teammates, they will say the same. I know that and that about myself. To the point I really had to challenge him and tell him, but if we gather the 7 billion people on earth, will they all agree on this about you? And suddenly you could see a shift in the energy and the way he was looking and thinking. And it's like there is a bubble that happened here. And he suddenly became aware actually that what I have maybe is a bias and I cannot know everything about myself. And this really made him transform and understand better how to expand that. Because if you don't accept the idea that you don't know yourself as well as you think you do, you will never try to reach for feedback from your team, your friends, your partner, your boss. But by reaching feedback and taking it in a constructive way, you are understanding your blind area, your blind spot, where they are, what don't you know about yourself. And suddenly you can start working on them, which what I did even with many leaders. About your hidden area as well, you can start showing vulnerability and exploring a little bit maybe what you are afraid or you're hiding. And you will see, we will talk about this in a few slides, how this is something really underrated. And the whole idea is to really expand it to know the unknown. And it's a constant journey. You will never have one full quadrant, but the whole idea is keep pushing and keep learning more about yourself to become better and better. What I want as well to add here is the SDO level, something I learned the hard way, and I suffered from it in the past as well. And I put it in this area of self awareness. So the SDO is standing for social dominance orientation. And I can give you, if you want, all the reference later if you're interested to read more about it. And this is when people preserve a strong hierarchy in the way of seeing things in organization. So it's like, if you're more senior than me, you know more, and that's it. And if you're not aware of this SDO within yourself, or even within others, you can easily compromise the thinking quality, the creativity, and the performance. And actually, there is a study about that, which I will share briefly and then jump to the rest. So they took different lecturers and head of departments from different schools, from different university and schools. And what they did, they divide them in groups. So 10 groups, they had the teacher with the head from the same school. And in other groups, they had teachers and head from different schools. What they were doing with this is they were trying to cancel the power dynamics in half of those groups. So where as a lecturer, if you don't know who is that person in front of you, you don't feel anymore this SDO that they are higher in rank and they might be right with what they say. And the results were impressive where they noticed that actually, after giving them a task to do, which was, I think, a math problem to solve, all the groups with no SDO, because they didn't know who's the head, so they are equal, okay, performed better. There was more creativity. There were more courage to propose ideas, and they solved the problem quicker, faster, and more accurate. And this really makes me reflect a lot of how can we apply this in companies? How can we really try to minimize this SDO? where maybe usually junior joining will have less of a voice because they are junior compared to more senior people in the room. And again, this links to what we said at the beginning about the thinking environment, having the attention, the appreciation, and the equality. But this will never happen if you, as a leader, you're not aware of it. And even I had to challenge some of my leaders in the past with a really open question to make my point. Because as me, long time ago, being new in an organization, for example, maybe my words will not have the same weight of someone who's been there senior for many years. And that is something I'm seeing even many people are struggling with it. And again, without self-awareness, we are not able to really break these barriers and get most out of our team. Now, jumping from there, this is one of my favorites. So all my coaching practice has been based or inspired, let's say, by Timothy Galloway, my favorite coach, and his great book, The Inner Game of Work, where there is a simple formula, which is what I use and heavily work with all leaders. It is performance equal potential minus interference. And you, as a leader, if you don't understand the conflicts you have inside you, and which I call interference between self one and self two, you will never be able to get more performance out of yourself. You see, I don't really like the expression of maximizing your potential because your potential is there. What you want to maximize is your performance. And this will happen by reducing the interference. And this is where I really heavily work with leaders on really understanding those interference that stops them to be the best they can be. And it makes a big difference. Looking inward is not easy. It's easier to blame others, to find excuses, but once we break that barrier and we reflect, great things happen. In few words. Now, this is something I wanted to share with you here. There is not much in this slide, but it's something that I've been asking many leaders over and over. What do they associate leadership with? Not awareness, like I asked you, leadership in general. And let's say many of the words that came were like support, communication, confidence. However, I wanted to add one, which is vulnerability. And it is something that is very underrated. Leaders don't understand that if you show vulnerability to your team, which is not a sign of weakness, you will instantly get much more out of them because you will shift their mindset from resisting something you're saying because you're the leader to understanding you and wanting to help you. Vulnerability is something misunderstood, which sometimes make us fall like, I don't want to sound weak. I had this conversation many times with many leaders, and it's not about being weak. Sometimes like shifting few words in the way you express yourself makes a big difference. I had leaders coming to me telling me, look, Tarek, I keep telling my team, we need to do the following. These are the new regulations in the company. No one does it. Nothing is changing. And it's like no one is caring actually. And what's happening is that that leaders in secret was struggling, was stressed because change is not happening. But then he was trying to show a sort of like self-image that he's strong, he's communicating something. And during coaching, we try to understand how we can really change the perspective and what will be the problem in shifting few words by saying, for example, look, guys, we have a problem. I need your help. They told me we need to implement the following. Okay. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what's the best way. Let's find a solution together. And instantly, by doing this, which is actually the democratic leadership style, so going back to the fourth principle of awareness, the team shifted from resistance to being attentive, attention, and solution focused and wanting to help. And suddenly the problem was dealt with effectively. So don't underestimate the power of really showing vulnerability and the big impact when it comes to leadership. Now, speaking of that, this is what I want to show you as well. And this is what I call the winner triangle. I didn't invent it. You can find it online easily. The drama triangle and shifting it to the winner triangle. So you see in the drama triangle, you have the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim. And usually this is what makes leaders micromanage. They feel they want to rescue the team. They have to jump and do the tasks and do everything. And when it doesn't work, they feel like victims. See, there is a lot of drama happening in that triangle. And then if it doesn't work, they feel like victim. They start to persecuting, trying to really enforce what they want to do, which also doesn't work. And on the other hand, the team will feel like you're persecuting me as my leader. I feel like a victim. It's not good. I need someone to rescue me. And what I work with leaders is how to shift that mindset, that sort of energy from drama to winner, where persecutor become assertive. Now, I think you cannot see the hidden, and victim becomes vulnerable. This is why I insisted on vulnerability in the previous slide. And when leaders start to understand they are not there to rescue their team, but they are there to show support, and they can be vulnerable while doing it, this is how they become more assertive. Because the team wants to help them, they see the vulnerability, they understand that they are being supported in that journey, and then the assertiveness will work to make change happen. So I really hope this resonates with you as well. And finally, I think that's the last thing I want to close this small mini webinar with you guys is I love this quote. It's one of my favorite. It's by Larry Steven, and I got it from a book of John Maxwell. Great, I think good leaders ask great question. And he was talking about one of the biggest destructive blind spots among leaders, which is singular perspective. And I couldn't agree more. And again, it is coming because of lack of self awareness among leaders. And the best way to explain this in few words is if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. I think it's self explanatory, and there is nothing I can do to explain it better. If you are not self aware that you have a singular perspective in seeing things, you can be damn sure that you will miss great opportunities and you will dismiss great ideas that might not be directly aligned with your way of thinking, with your tool, the hammer. So this is why I always ask you, be open, be curious, and this links to what I showed you at the beginning, have a growth mindset. We don't know it all. We can always learn. In my company in France, even when I work with interns and we develop patents together, their opinion has the same weight as mine, and I'm the technical director there. And we work as a team, not as me just mentoring or coaching them. And you can see amazing results because we don't know it all and we can get really great ideas even from junior or from people who think differently. That's the whole point of diversity. So I really hope that quote resonates with you. And I really hope that today you managed to get something out that resonates with you in your leadership style. And I'm happy to take any question you have if you want to leave in the chat. Originally, for me, it was about 40 minutes. I put it to 1 hour because I was worried that I'm going to be maybe rushing things. So I'm open for any question you have. Just write if you want anything in the chat. What I want to say as well that this webinar will be recorded automatically on YouTube. So if you want, you can join, subscribe to YouTube channel where you can see the recording there, and hopefully I will be uploading more things in the future the more I do webinars. Any question? I'm really happy to answer any question you might have. Thank you, Dr. Farah. I'm happy you enjoyed it. No question. Thank you. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. In both cases, if you do have any question, please, by any means, just head to Jomaa Coaching. You can add me on LinkedIn. Please connect. I will be happy to even have a free chat and discuss and explain to you more about this. With this, I wish you all an amazing weekend. Have a great day, and please